Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open the playbook of a founder who raised over $150 million for his AI company and, yeah, turned it into a unicorn. We're about to get into the real game of Silicon Valley fundraising. So, let's start with this number. Over $150 million. That's the staggering amount Higgsfield.ai, one of the fastest-growing startups in the world, has pulled in. It's a number that'll make your jaw drop, but the story behind it, well, it shows the game is about so much more than just the cash. And that's because fundraising at this elite level, as founder Alex Masherbov says right here, isn't about your sales numbers today. No. The hardest thing is convincing a tiny, tiny group of investors that you are going to be the winner, the only one that matters.
Okay, so let's dive into this playbook. We're going to cover the real VC game, what he calls social engineering. We'll deconstruct a unicorn pitch, break down the ladder of funding, and then talk about how you win the long game.
All right, first up, we have to understand the field of play. You have to know that this Silicon Valley venture capital game, it really just revolves around a handful of major players. And their incentives, they shape everything. So get this, there are thousands of VC funds out there, but for building a truly massive company, only about 15 of them actually matter. And their strategy is brutally simple. Find the one single category winner that's going to return their entire fund. Your entire job is to prove you're that bet. Okay, so how do you even get in front of these people? This brings us to the next piece of the puzzle. See, getting your idea to the right person is a game in and of itself, mostly because the standard process is pretty much designed to work against you. This probably looks familiar to anyone who's fundraised. It's the typical VC process. It's just a maze of these short, kind of superficial meetings where founders end up repeating the exact same information over and over again, and you never get to have a real, deep, strategic conversation. And this quote right here just nails the core of the problem. You're often talking to junior partners who are basically just incentivized to gather market intel so they can look smart in a meeting. They're not there to champion your vision. The system, for a founder, is fundamentally broken. So the real challenge, the whole point, is to bypass this entire system. You have to use what the founder calls social engineering. Basically, using your network strategically to get a real in-depth one-hour conversation directly with someone who can actually write the check. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Once you understand the game, it completely flips how you should build your pitch deck. You literally have to throw out the standard template everyone tells you to use. So instead of starting small, Higgsfield's pitch opened with this massive, ambitious vision. It wasn't, hey, we're Canva for video. It was, we are going after the $600 billion marketing automation market. See, VCs need to see that path to a huge outcome, so you have to start right there. Next, they hit them with what they called the flex slide. I mean, look at this. They just established overwhelming social proof, showing off deep connections with all the major AI players. It's a way of signaling, hey, we have an unfair advantage that nobody else can copy. This was another absolutely brilliant move. They just defined their own category. By saying they were an application layer company, they made it clear they weren't trying to compete with giants like OpenAI. No, they were in a league of their own. Then, they did something you're always told never to do. They put a 47-second product video right in the middle of their pitch deck. I mean, why would you break a cardinal rule of fundraising like that? The reason was, well, it was surprisingly human. He was doing up to 8 of these high-stakes meetings a day, back-to-back for weeks on end. The founder literally just needed a 47-second break to catch his breath and have a sip of water. So let's say you've won over investors with your pitch. Now you get to start climbing the ladder of funding rounds, and it's really important to know that each one has its own specific purpose. Okay, so a company's journey usually goes something like this. Pre-seed, then a seed round, then a Series A. But Higgsfield's growth was so insane that they needed a less common step, a Series A2. An A2 round is basically a clever shortcut. For a company that's just exploding with growth, it lets them take on more money fast without getting bogged down for weeks in all the legal paperwork and renegotiations that a full-blown Series B would require. But you gotta understand, in hyper-competitive markets like AI, fundraising is way more than just getting capital to run your operations. It becomes a strategic weapon for total market domination. This quote just captures the gold perfectly. The whole strategy of this aggressive, continuous fundraising is to block your competitors. If you take money from all the top funds, you make sure they can't invest in anyone else coming up behind you in your space. You're sucking the oxygen out. And this is why the founder says fundraising is less like chess, a game where you can see all the pieces, and a lot more like poker. You have incomplete information, you have to read the other players, and you've got to be willing to make big, calculated bets with the hand you're dealt.
And that's really the crucial takeaway from this whole playbook. In any competitive field, just figuring out which game you're actually playing, well, that's not just the first step. It's probably the most important one.